Hi, I'm Olaf the Code Coach, and I've created this video as a response to Nick Chapsas Code Cop number 3 video, where he rips into some advice I gave on LinkedIn regarding properties being better than fields. You'll find the links to the original LinkedIn post and Nick's video in the description below. And I have to say that I'm a little bit disappointed that an eminent programming YouTuber with 200,000 followers like Nick Chapsas got it so wrong here. I stand by my advice that I gave on LinkedIn. I think properties are better than fields. A couple of points before we get into it. The first one is that it's really important to adhere to the current convention that you've got in the existing code base. So before you grab this novel new way of using properties instead of fields, before you do that, just check with your team to see whether they're okay with it. You want to agree as a team before you move ahead with it. And my second point is that this particular topic is actually mostly around stylistic preferences. There isn't anything wrong with using raw fields. I'm just making the point that properties are mostly cleaner and tidier, they look better, and they're also more versatile. First off, Nick says, it just doesn't make any sense at all, it's just nuts. And then he gives some bullshit reasons as to why supposedly it's all nuts and why it doesn't make sense. Oh, it makes sense. And I will explain in this video why it makes sense. We'll pick it apart.
First, why would you have a property, which is a concept that supports encapsulation, as a field? It doesn't make any sense.
Nick says constant. It's not a constant. A constant would be the wrong construct here. We wouldn't be able to change the field. It is meant to be a variable. I think Nick means just that. He means construct. But that aside, let's carry on. He says it's a really, really bad idea. And his reasoning, as I understand him, is that you've already got the field when you declare it yourself. You've got the raw field. The field sees everything within the class. It's available in all the methods. Why would you want to have the property and the getter method? And I think this is where Nick gets a little bit fixated on encapsulation. He's saying, well, you've got your own manually declared field. Why would I want the property when I've got the field already and I can use that wherever? The encapsulation argument doesn't stand up to any kind of scrutiny. There is such a thing as a private property. If Microsoft didn't want us to have private properties, well, why make them available to us? Private properties are a thing, and we can use them, and they have nothing to do with encapsulation. They're just available within the class. One last point with regards to encapsulation. Using auto-generated properties means even stronger encapsulation. Why is that? It's because those backing fields created by the compiler are inaccessible to the programmer. We can't use them. With manually typed fields, anyone in the class can use them. Another reason to prefer properties over fields. But encapsulation isn't everything, Nick. Your focus is too narrow. It's not all about encapsulation when it comes to object-oriented programming. The difference between properties and fields. That's not the only thing. And one reason that I put to you is private properties provide a cleaner programming model. Fields have got those ugly underscores. Those underscores are ugly AF, in my opinion. And we don't have to have them. You give some spurious reasons for, well, we can get rid of the underscores, but I'm about to show in some code why that's actually quite problematic. Quite unclean even. Hi there, quick shout out to my Patreon page. I'm now on Patreon as Olaf the Code Coach. If you're into clean code, clean architecture, the solid principles, test-driven development, or just plain better software engineering, and you want to learn from someone with huge amounts of experience, you'll want to check this out. Alright, we're here in a class called Register Customer Use Case, and as you can see, there are a couple of declared class members. The top one of iCustomer Repository is a field, and the one below it, Customer Notifier, is a property. Look at the difference. This is Notifier. Look at the Customer Repository. It's got the underscore. Down here we've got the underscore. It's pretty ugly. We've got Notifier here. The Notifier was the private property, and the Pascal casing points out just the same that this is in fact class scope. Some of the solutions that Nick provides as to how we can overcome the underscore if you perceive it to be ugly, he says, why don't we come along and remove the underscore? Let's go ahead and do that. I'll just rename. Okay, lovely. That's all nice and good. But when we come down here into the methods, well, we don't have this. And when I add it, the IDE immediately grays it out. It's kind of saying, hey, it's unneeded. So when it's unneeded like that, and somebody in the team will do this sooner or later, we'll get rid of this thing. But now it just looks like your stock standard parameter. And we didn't get a warning about this. It just looks like a parameter. Yeah, this will help, but sooner or later, because the IDE is saying, hey, this isn't important, well, we're going to come to grief. What else can we do? Nick didn't point this out, but I'm just racking my brain for other solutions. So one of the things we could do is we could rename the repository to Pascal case. Here's our field, now it's Pascal case, and that works. Okay, that this is no longer required, which is lovely. Now we kind of look at this and it's like, hey, it looks great, right? Just like Notifier, it's Pascal case, therefore we know it's at the level of the class. Everything, all the methods in the class have got access to it, and we know it's not just the parameter. Nonetheless, we do come to grief a little bit because there is no distinction between fields and properties. I balk at that too. I want to know when I'm working with a property and when I'm working with a field. So I don't like that. Oh, by the way, as an aside, the read-only isn't needed when you're using a property just with a getter. Okay, so we remove the set, and it immediately says, hey, you can't set this guy unless it's inside the constructor. And we get other advantages when we're working with a property rather than a field. So for example, we get the code lens. Here it says Notifier is referenced a couple of times. Fantastic. With the field itself, the raw field, we don't get anything like that. There is no code lens. Okay, let's look at another example. I've got the shopping cart class, and there's an items collection that holds the shopping cart items. This is a field, because you mentioned that it's good to have fields to set state. Just do that, don't use properties. Okay, I've done that. I've created a total field. Nonetheless, here we want to expose the items collection outside of the shopping cart so we can enumerate what's currently in the shopping cart. We need the total exposed as well. Hey, the total price for the shopping cart is blah. We're already in a bit of trouble here, okay, right away, because, and just kind of assign a particular value, which is like an empty list, to our items collection here. But the IDE is kind of saying, hey, you don't need this, but we definitely do. I've got some unit tests here. Right, I'm running them. Right, all the tests pass. Nonetheless, if I kind of listen to what my IDE is telling me, and I comment this out, and I run the unit test, alright, all hell breaks loose. All the tests are red because we're getting a null reference exception. Alright, yeah, not so helpful. Okay, what other kind of trouble are we running into? Where else is this idea of just always setting the fields, setting state into field is really problematic. Alright, look what we need to do. So we're adding, removing items from the shopping cart, we're clearing it out, and at each stage we are setting the total, right, this field, to be, so sum across all the items subtotaled. And we're doing that on remove, on add, on clear. Well, on clear we know it's going to be 0. So, alright, just set it to 0. Alright, cool, done. And this is good, but it's kind of repetitive and somewhat error prone. Alright, we could pull it out into a method and call it getTotal or something like that. Well, why do I have to have getTotal? Just give me the property total. Alright, that does the work. Let me show you how I would do this using properties. Alright, still on the shopping cart. Now items is a property. Yes, it's public because it needs to be seen outside. It's a getter, therefore we're not setting anything. There's no danger that someone from outside, a caller, will set the value to be something else. We're initializing it to an empty list of shopping cart items. Fantastic. So we're not going to encounter that null reference exception which we had earlier on. The IDE isn't telling us that it's irrelevant. And we've got the total here. And the total is a calculated property, which means we can completely forget about that field that we had earlier on. So what that means is the total is calculated just like from before, but we just do it in one place because we're calling it just in time. It's like a function, getTotal. We are calculating the total just like before as iterating across the items and summing up all the item subtotals. I mean, how cool is that? And because we've got the total, it doesn't mean we need to do anything about calculating the total in add, remove, even in clear. We just remove all the items, then when a caller calls the total, the items subtotals immediately summed up and you'll always get the correct value. This is much better than working with extra state, okay? So you're wrong there, Nick. Don't always keep state in member variables. Nick then proceeds to show us how the compiler creates an auto-generated backing field under the hood, which is absolutely correct. Unless it's a calculated property, a backing field must exist. Anyway, he insists that this is a really, really bad idea. It's a really bad idea to have this getter method on the backing field that you automatically get with one of these auto properties. I understand why Nick is concerned with this additional getter method that we get with a property versus not for a field. It's that idea of performance optimization, and if we have this additional method call, then our performance is going to degrade. Nick, let me put your mind at ease. The performance degradation is entirely negligible for 99.9999% of programs. Alright, here's something that someone smarter than both I and Nick has said. There is no doubt that the holy grail of efficiency leads to abuse. Programmers waste enormous amounts of time thinking or worrying about the speed of the non-critical parts of their programs, and these attempts at efficiency actually have a strong negative impact when debugging and maintenance are concerned. We should forget about small efficiencies about 97% of the time. Premature optimization is the root of all evil. Donald Knuth, Professor Emeritus, Stanford University. It is absolutely ridiculous to say that these getter methods that have been auto-generated by the compiler on these properties are having any sort of significant impact on performance. Absolutely ridiculous. The performance impact, and I'm about to show this in a program, is ridiculously small. Nick is giving developers the idea that these non-critical performance improvements are adding to a program's efficiency. And yeah, this is entirely misleading. And I wish he didn't do this. But okay, here we are. Improve significant efficiencies, not something like this. Anyway, it's time to go into my little program that I've written, and we can just see what kind of overhead these getter methods on properties actually have. I created a program with a tight loop, and I ran it for a field, and I ran it for a property accessor, and the difference was negligible. Let's have a look at this program. And it's called performance. I'll specify F for field, and we'll make it 1 billion iterations. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Alright, so with the field, it took, for 1 billion iterations, 533 milliseconds. So roughly half a nanosecond, because we're dividing half a second by this billion operations is half a nanosecond. Let's try it again. With a property, it takes 585 milliseconds. Alright, so 50 milliseconds extra. It's hardly anything. You'll find the code for this on GitHub, and here's the link. What does that actually mean? It means that the two results were almost indistinguishable. So there was an extra 50 millisecond that it took to access the property 1 billion times. How much extra is that? Well, that's 0.05 nanoseconds, which is 50 picoseconds. And in a nanosecond, light moves approximately a foot, and a 50 picoseconds would be a 20th. So the light in a in 50 picoseconds would approximately be 1.5 centimeters or half an inch. That's the overhead that you get for 1 times the property access. It depends on computer, obviously. Having said that, I don't have a particularly highly spec'd laptop. So I've got a 4-core i7 here that I did this with. Most servers would probably be faster, especially if they've got more modern cores. Yeah, so it's a non-issue. You use properties, use private properties, all you want. There are bigger issues to concern yourself with. Like any kind of network I/O that you can reduce. That takes on the order of milliseconds. Like millions of times, nearly billions of times longer than what the issues are. So, and that you are hurting your system design, the way Nick says, absolutely ridiculous. Please don't listen to Nick in that regard. We've reached the end. I'm sorry I didn't manage to cover all the points. There was just too much. Thank you very much for watching. I really appreciate it. And I hope that you liked the video. If you did, I'd really appreciate a like. Or if you loved it or really liked it, maybe consider subscribing to my channel. I'm also on Patreon. And feel free to follow me on LinkedIn or connect. I pretty much accept all connection requests on LinkedIn. And I do a daily programming tip there. I mean, that's how Nick found me. I've also got a weekly software engineering newsletter at codecoach.co.nz/blog. I'm curious to see what you thought of the content. Please feel free to leave a comment. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time.